right, folks. Um, well, I didn't warn anyone that I was going live, so I might as well go ahead and get started. Marquett, Devon, Burton, the saint and the sinner, giving you lessons from a pimp. And folks, do confirm that you can actually hear me. What I feel inspired to talk about today is female nature, primarily because one of my subscribers at patreon.com/the saint and the sinner asked me, Marquette, can you tell me more about female nature? So I feel more comfortable when I'm dealing with women in conversation. I have a better sense of what to say. And another subscriber said, Marquette, I used the questions that you shared on patreon.com to engage in deep conversations with women. They allowed me into their mind and shared their history and secrets with me. As a result, I've learned a lot of things about their history that I don't really like. Can you give me some advice on how to deal with a woman's past? So I said, absolutely, I got you covered. And gentlemen, if you have questions during this talk, feel free to post them in the comment section. What I want to do to elucidate, or I should say rather illuminate the nature of the female, is give you some short stories to point out certain things. The chief characteristic that you want to understand about the female is they are best characterized as radically insecure characters. For example, there was a young lady that made my acquaintance, and she looked me up on Instagram by her own doing, and then goes through my Instagram history. And as you gentlemen know, women are consummate detectives. CIA, FBI, ATF all rolled into one. They should all really work for forensic files, and we'd never have a murder unsolved. So anyways, she goes through all of this background stuff, and then she tells me via direct message, she says, Marquette, I was looking through your profile and there's some really, impressive stuff, but I saw this video where you're talking about women wearing makeup and you're talking about women using filters in their photos. Well, some women use Snapchat filters on all of their photos because there's so much pressure on women. And it's not really right that you tell women that they shouldn't do that. I wish this was a real classroom so I can ask you, what do you guys think? Why do you think she said that? Now, here's what you must learn. Out of all the things on my profile, she hinged on that one thing. And if you pay attention to Marquettism, you know the number one characteristic you must have is to be a great listener. As a listener, that is how you learn the world. People will tell you who they are. The only question is, are you accepting it? So when she said, you shouldn't tell people that, or you shouldn't tell women that they ought not use these Snapchat filters because there's a lot of pressure on women. So me as a wise man, rather than pushing back on her, I made a deep analysis. The analysis would teach you that, first and foremost, she's a deeply insecure woman because all of the content on my page, where you see pictures of me doing community service, you see pictures of me giving food to the needy, you see pictures of me teaching young children, the one thing that she notices is that I recommended women do not use Snapchat filters because it's detrimental to their own self-image. Now here's the irony. If you saw this young lady, I say she's about an 8.5 or a 9 in the face. Gorgeous young lady. But you should know that the most beautiful women are deeply insecure. And the levels of insecurity in the female are going to be there whether they're a perfect 10 or they're a 5 or a deuce. And that's because it's the way they're wired. The reason women are wearing all of this makeup is because no matter what, they never feel good enough because their self-esteem is validated based on externalities, meaning other people giving them attention and giving them praise is what makes them feel good inside. Conversely, the male feels comfortable. We're fine being fat, stupid, and ugly, right? We don't put on makeup. We're just fine the way we are. Because for the most part, if we're raised up strong, our self-esteem comes from the inside and it comes from our actual accomplishments. So that's number one piece of female nature, is to know that they're deeply insecure. So you must ask yourself as a man, how is it that you could ever be unconfident to approach a woman when she's not even confident going out in public without putting paint over her face? How could you be unconfident to approach a woman when she's not even comfortable with her body. She has to wear a Spanx or some waist trainer, which is a euphemism for something that squishes in your gut. How could you be unconfident in talking to a woman when everything about her is fake? From her hair extensions to her eyelashes being fake, to her eyebrows being ripped out and sculpted, to the unsightly hair being removed with laser, to the face covered in makeup. All of these different things show how deeply insecure the woman is. So what you should know going in is you're dealing with a human being, rather almost, let's just say, you're dealing with a human being that is only getting her self-esteem from an externality. So if you approach the woman in full confidence without showing her that you're at all impressed with her externality, she is going to seek your approval, because that's what women are doing when they go out in the world in these jean shorts that have half of their butt hanging out. They're seeking attention because they only feel validated by that external attention. So that's number one in female nature. Number two, based on the situation I described where this young lady looked at my whole Instagram and the one thing she wanted to talk about was the thing she disagreed with. Number two, give me a second. Number two in female nature, women are complainers. I don't know why. You'd have to ask a therapist or a scientist why, but they're complainers, meaning that if there's something to complain about, you can bet your bottom dollar they're going to have something to say about it. They're always dissatisfied. That is their inclination unless they have been trained out of this. So what you should be fully aware of is that nothing's ever good enough. That's their actual basic mentality. And you can observe it in the fact that they have nails. Those nails aren't good enough. Let's put fake nails on top. They have hair. That hair's not good enough. Let's add extensions. Nothing's good enough to them. They're always trying to alter and change and improve. Well, what's improvement in their mind, which generally involves things that are fake. So that's a number two piece of female nature. Number one is that they're deeply insecure. Number two, they're deeply concerned with improving, altering, fixing, and changing things because nothing's ever good enough, including themselves and including you if you're not controlling their mind right and leading them in the right directions. So let me ask you this. Why would you chase a woman when in reality they're going nowhere? How do I know they're going nowhere? Because generally speaking, the female is seeking the approval of others. And how does she get that? She usually pursues that through her external beauty. Females who know that they're not very valued for their attractiveness, they pursue external validation through accomplishment, right? Getting a high-paying job, getting academic honors, things like that. These types of personalities you also have to be cautious of, because when they're pursuing external validation through the high-paying salary or the important job or the academic degrees, those are the women who are often going to fall into competition with the male. And if a woman is in competition with you, you will have a very difficult time getting along with her, because anything that you achieve, rather than praising you for it, she's going to try to outdo you. And the reason for that is based on her own self-examination of saying, okay, I'm not the good-looking girl. I'm not the girl with the nice body. I got to be the brainiac. I got to be the achiever. I got to strive. And so she's going to be striving against you. The only way you can find a woman who does not have that nature is if she had a great father. And for the most part, Chris, I appreciate the donation, brother. Thank you. Shout out to you. If you have any questions, do share. The only way you can find a woman who is not suffering from that mentality is if she was raised by a strong father. Most of the time, that's not the case. And that's why, generally speaking, if you find that she has a weak father, you're going to have a lot more work to do to build your relationship with this woman and make sure that she respects you as a leader. But let me go into this other little piece that one of my subscribers on patreon.com asked about. He says, Marquett, you created a list of questions on Patreon and basically said how you can get into a woman's mind and figure out everything about her. And he's like, I successfully did that. She shared a lot of her sexual history, and frankly, it disgusts me. And I'm thinking, bro, of course it does. Because another thing about female nature is that they are deeply sexual animals. honestly, almost to the point where it's perverse. I'll give you a few stories. I can tell you of multiple women who have told me not only do they watch pornography, they watch gay pornography, like homosexual males engaging with one another, and that turns them on. These are the levels of like sexual deviance that you're dealing with in the female. Further, in terms of their masturbatory practices, their masturbation that is, they're using like damn near power tools just to get off. And the worst thing about it is it's desensitizing the vagina. So by the time you deal with her, the vagina is going to be dry. You know, by the time you deal with her, it's going to be very hard to please her sexually. The important thing to know about her like very high level of sex drive is that it's often repressed because they feel in this society they can't be honest about their sex drive. So they're repressing it, which makes them even more perverse. Because you're dealing with someone who has a monstrous sex drive, but they're trying to repress it so that they can control you. The reason they have to repress the sex drive is because they know that generally speaking, you want sex and it's their only tool to control you. And here's how you know it's their only tool. I told you, gentlemen, one rule. When you look at a woman, to assess her true value, ask yourself, if she did not have a vagina, if she didn't have a nice body or a pretty face, what would her true value be? And generally speaking, her true value would be very low, right? So because of that, they use the vagina to mind control you. And I just got a Cash App donation. The name disappeared. If you donated on Cash App, let me know your name in the comments. I appreciate that. So they use the vagina as mind control on you. So what I tell you guys is that you really need to have control over your mind, body, and spirit, because if you're chasing the vagina, you're essentially following the female as a zombie. You're following her as a hypnotized human being. And the way that you can remove her power is to not chase the vagina. The reason the pimp is such a powerful figure is because a pimp basically removes sexuality from the relationship. He controls the woman solely based on her mind. The pimp does not try to sex the woman. He's the guy who only wants to fuck her mind, not her body. And because oh, there's a screechy sound? Damn. Your phone is making noise. Is the sound still bad right now? Stop the show. Is the sound still bad? If it is, I'm gonna unplug this and... How's it sound, fellas? Oh, the sound is still bad. Okay, give me 1 second. Let me see if I can fix this. All right, how about now? Does it sound any better? Let me know if the sound is... Okay, we're gonna make this work real quick. Try to turn on my AC now because I rolled up the windows. Okay, sound is good. Great. Let's get back to work. Where was I? I think we were talking about the sex piece, right? So if you're chasing sex, you're chasing a woman. And the really the worst thing in chasing sex is that basically you have a person who's wildly insecure, a person who literally has no true goals in their life except to be validated by external parties, a person who's truly sexually interested in satisfying herself, but is going to withhold it from you merely to control you. That's not a person you want to follow. You need to follow the pimp model wherein you withhold sex until you know that you've already taken over her mind and her heart. Remember that today, and shout out to the person who gave the donation. I truly appreciate it. Do say your name again so I can shout you out. You want to control the mind and the heart. In 2020, a female will give away her sex freely. You see, she'll give away her sex on a one-night stand. She'll give away her sex when she's out on vacation and she thinks no one's going to know that she was out whoring herself around with multiple guys. When she thinks she likes you, that's when she's going to withhold sex from you as a tool for her own control. Let me give you a quick example. I was talking to a young lady, gorgeous woman, And she told me that she was in a 6-year relationship with a man, but for the last 2 years of the relationship, she was celibate. And I said, why would you do that? That sounds like you were trying to psychologically torture the guy. She says, no, I wasn't trying to do that. It's just that I didn't want to be in the relationship, but I didn't know how to break up with him. So it was really like I just wasn't attracted to him. I fell out of love with him. Well, then, bitch, why would you stay in the relationship for an additional 2 years and torture the guy? The reason that she became celibate in the last 2 years of the relationship is because she was using sex as a tool to control and humiliate this man. And he was obviously too weak and too pussy whipped to get out of the relationship. Because if you're in a relationship and a female is withholding sex from you over a long period of time, she's doing that solely to destroy you. Because the truth is, if she's with you and she's not giving you sex, she should really be worried about where else you're getting sex. So if she's not giving you sex, that shows that she has a very low value of you and a low opinion of you, so low that she's not even worried about you cheating on her. You understand what I'm saying? So that's truly a terrible thing if they're instrumentalizing sex. And another tip for you guys, if you're involved with a woman and you are consistently getting physical satisfaction from her, and then all of a sudden she withdraws that physical satisfaction, that should indicate that there's a psychological issue on her part. You understand what I'm saying? So either she's going through something that is a past trauma that's being brought up, or she's trying to manipulate and control you, or she has religious guilt. Whatever the case is, all of those things are bad, and you need to recategorize her into a woman that you're not going to make a priority. And another thing to remember is that, ironically, when you make a woman a low priority, you probably are going to become a higher priority for her. Why is that? Because as I pointed out, the number one key to female nature is insecurity. So the moment you show a lack of interest, they increase their pursuit of you. Were there any questions that you guys wanted me to answer before I carry on giving you this game? If you have any questions, go ahead and post them up. Looks like there's been a lot of comments. I haven't been live in a long while. So they're just looking for some questions real quick. If not, I'll get back to this church. Okay. All right, cool. Yeah, I know. I appreciate that, Mr. Hayden. And you know what? I actually have been a professor of many things. I've given lectures at the University of Chicago School of Business, as well as Northwestern, primarily on, creating companies, tech companies, things like this. But if there's no particular questions, I want to carry on a little bit. Another thing what do you think about referring to women as females? They seem to think it's derogatory. Sakir, good to see you again, brother. Women, as I said, if you heard point number 2 or 3, I think it was on female nature, is that they're complainers. This is what they do. So as a man, you should have thick skin. So I think that referring to them as females is most accurate because you have yet to build up enough knowledge of the female to know that if she's a lady or if she's a bitch. So calling her a female is the most respectful thing you can do before you've built rapport with the young lady. So that's first and foremost. What other questions do we have on here? Why do they always want what they can't have? You know what, Jake? It's actually not only female nature to want what they can't have, but it's also male nature. It's human nature to want what you can't have. The wise man is one who is able to get enduring peace from mastering his mind and his internal world. But to speak more specifically about women wanting that which they can't have, let us think about human nature when you go down to the animal level of the female being one who gets impregnated, meaning that they now have to provide for food for another human being, right? Which means they're in a state of weakness and they have to rely on others. Because years and years ago, right, hundreds of years ago, when the female gets pregnant, she's in a very vulnerable state. So her inclination is to accumulate. It's to accumulate foods and resources that she can use for later just in case. So certainly it's the nature of the human being, and especially the female, to try to accumulate because they know from the beginning they're in the weaker position. But what I can tell you to go a little bit deeper about what they can't have, females are so lost psychologically that they don't interpret the world as it actually is. For example, if I was to see a woman walking by right now in jean shorts with her ass hanging out, and I rolled down my window and said, I like those shorts. She might smile and she might stop and chat for a bit. If I was a fat, ugly man and the same woman was walking by in the same jean shorts and I rolled down the window and said, "Hey, I like those shorts," she would call that sexual harassment. Do you see the difference? Objectively, it's the same situation, but in the female mind, because she's attracted to me, if I make a vulgar comment, it's no longer vulgar. But if she's not attracted to me and I make a vulgar comment, then all of a sudden it's a sexual harassment. So that's what you have to understand about the female mind, is that they're 99.9% emotion. And a man today, or I should say a male today, most of the males today are also running on emotion. What I'm always recommending is that you're running on logic, and also that you're living your life as a natural man, true to your nature. And true to a man's nature is to be aggressive and to be confident and to be forward. For example, there was a time I was pulling out of a parking lot in a gated community. There's a young lady I'd seen a couple times, and I was about to pull out, and then I noticed her car had turned on, so I could see that she was in there. So I hit the reverse, and she had got out and started walking, and I said, "Hey, I want to meet you." And she turned around, and I said, "What's up?" And she says, "Oh, hi." And I was like, "Yeah, what's your name?" She's like, "Oh, my name is such and such." I was like, "Oh, my name is blah, blah, blah." And we chopped it up for a little bit, and I went on about my business because I just wanted to make that initial contact. Was that aggressive? Extremely aggressive. Did I catch her off guard? Absolutely. When she went to wherever she was going, I know she probably thought, "Wow, that guy was really aggressive. He came off super strong." And that's the way you gotta come off sometimes, because the truth is, as Machiavelli states, fortune is similar to a woman in that it is the bold man rather than the cautious man who will win her and retain her. So you always need to choose to be aggressive rather than be scared. If you're failing to do something because you're scared, that's a bad idea. However, I will tell you, there's only one guy I know who I'm willing to call and ask about and chop up some game with, and that's a buddy of mine. He's a doctor of psychology. He got his doctorate in psychology from Berkeley. So we're talking high level game. And for example, there was one young lady in an apartment building that I was in. As you guys know, I got a lot of places, and good looking woman, very well to do, high up in government. And she used to pass by my apartment all the time, and we chopped it up. Then I stopped seeing her. And so I was like, should I hit this chick up online? And then I was telling him, I was like, "Hey man, I love spitting my game in person. I'm all about in person, but I haven't seen this chick around. So I'm an impatient type of character when I'm ready to get something done." And he says, "Quat, you know better than I do, because you're all about in person, face to face." He says, "You don't want to show your hand." And what he means by that is, if you go out of your way to look up this chick and hit her up, she might get confused on where you stand mentally. She might get confused and think that you're really pressed to get involved with her. And in my case, that's not the situation. In my case, I want to add her to my collection. I got a whole collection. I want to add her to it. She might confuse me off the rip to be a guy who's trying to get that one woman he loves, right? So he was right in that case. You always have to present yourself accurately as you actually are. And when I talk in person, women get a true sense of me. But the way I speak to a woman, if I spoke that way via text message, it wouldn't work, because I'd come off like an asshole and there'd be no charm to balance it. Me, in person, I'm very charming. I can say something very crazy and outrageous, and women will laugh it off and roll with it. But over text message, it doesn't go the same way. So what I'm encouraging you to do is be aggressive, be yourself, do things in person if you can, but always make sure that you're communicating who you are to that woman in an accurate way. Which is why I never tell you to say, "Oh, I didn't get that text message," and like be unresponsive to a woman. Because if you're pretending to be unresponsive, but she knows that you're not a busy man, she knows that you're a Domino's delivery pizza guy, she's going to think that's fake. Whereas in my case, if I don't respond and I tell a woman, "Hey, I was up all night talking to my manufacturers in China because I'm producing a boxing shoe from scratch," that makes sense to her because that's my real life. So what I'm always telling you guys to do is be authentic and be real. And remember, do not chase a woman, because if you chase a woman, it will lead you nowhere. Because for the most part, women are going nowhere. If you take it biblically, Eve was put on earth as a supporter, as a helper to Adam. Adam was put on earth with a mission. Eve's only mission was to support Adam. You'll find great women, and the thing that really thrills them is being with a great man because they want to help him rise up. They want to raise his children. They want to cook him nutritious meals. That's a good woman. Most of the women who purport to be ambitious, for the most part, they're not truly ambitious. And I know this because I've worked with them, I've managed them. And the women who, even in medical school, when they want to become doctors, most of them don't become surgeons because it requires a higher number of hours. And they know psychologically they eventually want to get pregnant. They want to spend time with their kids. Whereas a man, even if he has kids, he still wants to go extra hours in the office. And as it has been said, you never lose women chasing money, but you will lose many, many dollars chasing women. I'll say that one more time. You don't lose women chasing money, but you will lose a lot of money chasing women. So remember that you always have to be goal focused, because if you achieve your goals will never abandon you. Your goals will never put you down. Your goals will never ask you for child support. But a woman, when things go wrong, she might become one of your worst enemies. And that's what you're seeking to avoid. So always keep them in that side position under the clear reality that they can be switched in and switched out at a moment's notice. Because what I tell you in terms of my philosophy is that you must live as a stoic. You must live as a Taoist, which is to say that you take life as it comes and you're living in the present. So if you have to let a bitch go, you feel fine about that because you haven't lost anything. She was never promised to be in your future. The only thing that you really need to stay focused on is keeping yourself sharp, because the sharper you are, the more value you have. And you should know, if you always have value as a man, women will always attract to you. Always. I kid you not. Literally, because of this pandemic, I have to exercise in the parking lot in my gated community. There's been times when there have been multiple cars driving by and bitches will stop and roll down the window just to talk a little shit to me. You see what I'm saying? Because strength will always be valuable in this world. A real man will always be valuable in this world. Let me see what your questions are, fellas. Okay, what we got here? Why does she constantly ask questions, and how do I break it off clean, cool, and smoothly? Oh boy. Do you think old ex stuff is important to speak on or leave in the past? That's a phenomenal question about the ex boyfriends. When you deal with a woman, you must always Dr. Phil her and dig into her background. The reason that you have to dig into a woman's background is because it will let you know who she truly is. To give you a brief example, there was a young lady that I had an involvement with, and I've had involvement with a lot of women. I mostly don't sleep with them because they're just not good enough. I don't sleep with them because I don't want to build attachment. So first I have to figure out who they are. There's a young lady that I was dealing with, and I started asking her about, her sexual interests in a non-judgmental way. And remember, gentlemen, we are the saints and we are the sinners. So we don't look down on a woman. We let them know we're here to love, not to judge. But just because we're not judging them doesn't mean we're going to deal with them in a romantic relationship. So anyways, I talked to her and I dug out her sexual desires by strategic questions. Hey, what's one of your fantasies? And then she said, initially, she says, oh, well, you know what? I usually don't talk about it because a lot of girls pretend that they're prude, and the ones that aren't prude lie about what they actually do. So what do? You agree with a woman, because women, being self-absorbed, it's easy for them to think that you do agree with what they're thinking. So I said, oh yeah, I think you're right. A lot of women do pretend as though they're not willing to do things that they actually are willing to do. In fact, you know what? I was in Malibu at a vineyard one day, and we were passing around bottles of wine, and after a couple of those bottles of wine got drank, people started playing Never Have I Ever, and then they started playing, two truths, one lie, telling about like their sexual fantasies. And a lot of girls said they had a sexual fantasy of being raped and things like this. So I opened her up, right? Once I did that, the young lady says, yeah, I have a fantasy of a DP. Now me, I was like, what the fuck is a DP? I had to like literally Google this, which a DP stands for double penetration, which basically meant like one in the front, one in the back at the same time. Then I told her, like, is that what you mean? And she says, well, actually, I mean three. One in the front, one in the back, and one in the mouth, all simultaneously. When she told me that, I knew in my mind I'm dealing with a woman who has a monstrous sex drive. And then I wanted to dig in deeper to find out what are the origins of this kind of sexual need. So then I talked more, and she says, yes, I'm into like hitting and slapping to the point of where it leaves bruises. She's like, I'm really into that. So these things let me know if you really want to get your freak on, this is your girl. If you want to have a girlfriend, probably not your girl, because you can never expect her to be monogamous when her true fantasy is to be with three men at one time, right? So the key to her opening up is the fact that she viewed me as a man who is non-judgmental. The way a woman will view you as a man who is non-judgmental is, one, don't talk so much. Number two, agree when it seems appropriate to benefit you. And number three, validate her when she's giving you things that you want. Like if she's giving you the kind of information you want, validate her so she keeps talking, right? So that's how you open up the woman. And once you uncover that sexual past, I think most of the time you'll be disgusted or you'll be scared, honestly, because the things that you have had as a personal desire as a man are very mild with regards to comparing them to what women want, because what women want is often quite extreme. So that's number one. You must dig into her history, because in understanding her sexual history, understanding her ex-boyfriends, you'll know the truth about the woman. And here's a good question to ask her. Hey, like obviously when you break up with someone, they have bad things to say about you. You have bad things to say about them. If I was talking to your ex, like, why do you think he would say that the relationship ended? Like, what would he say is your fault? Then she'll go ahead and tell you what he would say. And remember, what he would say about her is going to be a lot more accurate than what she would say about herself. So that's an important way to dig through her history and find out who she really is. And here's a major insight. If you're talking to a woman about her past relationship and she drags her ex-boyfriend through the dirt, you can be assured that she is not a good woman. Why? Birds of a feather flock together. If he was such a bad guy, why were you dealing with him? Number two, legitimate, upstanding, upright, upper class people, they don't dog out people. They don't talk trash behind people's back. Intelligent women are also aware that if they talk down on their ex, it only shows how low they are for dealing with a guy who's that low, right? So there's a young lady that I was recently talking to, gorgeous, and she told me that basically her ex was a guy who was completely broke and used to steal money from her. So that has to let me know I shouldn't deal with you in a serious way, because if the last guy you were dating was stealing money from you, that lets me know you don't have the common sense to differentiate an upstanding man from a criminal, right? So it shows that she's seeking out subconsciously to find a man who will misuse and abuse her. Sakira, appreciate the donation, brother. Good looking out. And everyone who's donating, do share your questions so I can go ahead and answer them. But the woman's ex is truly the key to understanding her, understanding what her buttons are so that you can push those buttons. And you remaining as an objective person, almost like a therapist, in the way that you sit and listen to her and that you validate her when she's spilling her guts, is going to make her continue coming out with that truth. And what I can assure you of, I've had a lot of women that I groomed over time, and I'm so deeply implanted in their mind that there are things I know about them that their husband doesn't know about them. You understand what I'm saying? And even though they're married, if I called them up and told them to get butt ass naked, they're going to do it, because they've always felt such a deep connection with me, because they're going to tell you Marquett doesn't judge me. And the truth is, though I might not approve of what they do, I don't judge them. I just will never be in a marriage with them. I'll never be in a serious relationship with them, but I don't judge them. Why? Because having experienced the life I have, been hustling on the streets, I've encountered all variety of humankind, from drug addicts all the way up to wealthy hustlers. And then in business, encountering like people who are literally 100 millionaires, right? So I appreciate the spectrum of humankind. And so I just address people where they are. And that's going to cause anyone you encounter to look at you as someone who does not judge, someone who they can share their secrets with, someone they can come to for advice. Okay? When you're backbiting, this is always going to make you look bad, because the truth is, a great person does not need to make others small for them to feel big. So if you're really a big man, you don't need to make others small. For you to talk down on someone lessens who you are. And you should only talk down on anyone when it is a strategic decision. If you look at, for example, the 48 Laws of Power, and you look at 50 Cent and Ja Rule, when 50 Cent started attacking Ja Rule, he was less famous. By the time he was finished attacking Ja Rule, he was more famous because he got Ja Rule, who was big, to use his energy and invest it in the 50 Cent. So you have to do things strategically. But generally speaking, the pimping does not backbite, because it will always be to your detriment to speak hateful and negative words. Are there other questions I can get to? Okay. Thank you for this. I'm on a good track. I agree, even if I disagree, to get her to speak her mind more. This chick brings up something and then says, never mind, like she forgets. That's funny. Let me just give you a quick note on women who might behave in strange ways. The importance of having a large stable of women is so that you have choice. If you look historically, the definition of wealth is choice. The reason people have money is so that they can choose how things occur. You understand? So you not only need to be wealthy in dollars, you should also be wealthy in women, so you can choose who you deal with. Um, One person says, how can you hit up on a princess like from a royal family? I like that. But my goal for you guys is to have choice. So if you're dealing with a woman who's gorgeous but she's brain dead, just keep her on low association, meaning that if she shoots you a message, you'll respond. But you don't want to invest energy into her, because the truth is, gentlemen, if a woman is behaving foolishly, that's who she really is. She's not pretending. You understand? And another thing to know about women, if you're having trouble building up conversation, there's probably a problem, because if a woman is interested in you, she's going to put forth an effort. And women by nature are communicators. They talk a lot. So what you're going to find is that when you're first meeting a woman, it might be a little bit of work to build up that conversation. But once she has decided that she's interested in you, she's going to talk your ear off. You barely have to even respond. So if you ever have issues with the flow of the conversation, that means that the chemistry is not there. Even though I can fabricate a rapport. I can create a fake bond because I'm so strategic. I've talked to so many women. I know how to make them all comfortable. I know how to make them like me. I've dealt with girls who told me from the beginning, I do not fuck with black guys. I've dealt with girls whose parents raised them to be racist. I've dealt with girls in South Korea who have only dealt with Korean guys and barely speak English. So I've been able to crack open a lot of women that are hard to crack. But what I can assure you of is there's no need to put so much energy into one woman if things are not blossoming. Do not force it. What you want to do is find the women who are naturally interested in the kind of guy that you are. So, for example, Sakir had made a comment earlier. He also booked a consultation with me, so I know a little bit more about him. I believe he said he likes the longboard. For example, me, I don't longboard. I don't even really know exactly what it is. But the kind of girl that he likes, or the kind of girl that likes him, is going to be one who likes longboarding. There are a lot of girls who don't believe in violence, so they're not going to like who I really am because I love boxing. What you want is to have alignment between who you are and what the girl actually likes. And you also want to seek a woman who's open, meaning that even if she doesn't like certain things, it's not her preference, she's willing to experience it with you. I've dated a lot of women And I'm blessed to say that when you ask them, what do you want to listen to on the radio? Whatever you want to listen to. What do you want to watch on TV? Well, you pick, right? When they're sincere in giving you the option, those are great women because they're deferring to your leadership. It's going to make your life with them a lot easier. Here's how you know you have a dumb bitch that's going to make your life hell. It's a small sign. For example, I had one young lady, huge fat ass, big titties, fat ass, beautiful blonde chick, but brain dead. She got in my car and we were driving somewhere, and she was like, "Oh, you have Spotify? Check out this band," which is all good to share music. I'm happy to hear your music, but if you think you're gonna DJ the whole time in my whip while I'm driving, baby, you're killing my vibe. Did I say anything to her like, nah, turn off that bullshit? I'm not trying to listen to Blink 182 in this motherfucker. I'm not trying to listen to your top 40 hits. No, I let her play her music. But in my head, I came to the understanding that she's a self-absorbed person. Even though I'm driving in my own vehicle, she wants to control the radio. It let me know that she was not raised right. People who were raised right and who have had siblings, they know how to share. They know how to look out for the community instead of just themselves, right? So you need to look at these little signs. And what you should know is that you don't want to make a fuss or a problem over small things. But if you intend to last with the woman and build a strong relationship as your main girl, don't let things slide. Like, that girl was a side bitch, so I could just go ahead and let that slide. It's not a big thing. If it's my main girl, I don't want to let anything slide because she needs to have a basic understanding of my rules and regulations. I hope that makes sense to you. Let me see if there's other questions here, folks. If you have a question, go ahead and type it in right now. Mozart Gates put, how do you feel about the Ahmaud Arbery situation? Gates, I feel like generally speaking, a man should be able to protect himself. And in the absence of the government not being willing to protect you, you should probably do a concealed carry or an open carry firearm. In the state of Pennsylvania, in the state of Nevada, in many other states, it's legal to open carry. And then in other states, you can get a concealed carry permit for a very low cost. And I recommend that you do it. You should always be able to protect yourself. And also be around wealth. When you're around wealth, you're not going to have those kind of issues. For example, in my neighborhood, it's a wealthy neighborhood. Nobody wants to shoot anybody. People just want to go to nice restaurants. People want to take trips abroad. He was in a low-class place in Georgia. I'm not saying that means that you should get shot because you're in a low-class place, but I'm saying I'm always teaching abundance. Position yourself in the right place. Like in my complex, in my gated community, the women that engine shuts off in 28 seconds. Okay. In my gated community, the women that are around there are worth meeting because I know for sure they have a certain level of income. And that's the kind of woman I want to meet who has a high income. So where you position yourself will keep you safe. You understand? When I jog around my neighborhood, no one around my neighborhood has a gun because it's not dangerous. It's extremely safe. You see Asian and white women walking around in the middle of the night because they have not a care in the world. And that's where you want to be. What other questions do we have here, folks? Should I downgrade my main girl when I know it's not flourishing? How do I do it smoothly? That's a good question. I used to be of the mentality that if a girl is not performing well, you need to kick her out of the stable immediately and don't look back. So for many years, my stable was in flux and I was kicking chicks out left and right. Now, what I highly recommend that you do is that you maintain civility, you continue being polite, you just minimize your investment of energy, of financial capital, of emotional capital, right? That way, if you ever need to leverage them for anything in particular, they're still there, but you have not invested much to get something out of them. So it's just pull back, as Chief Keef said. That's correct. Unless a chick is giving you major problems, then you got to kick her out. But what I always tell you is you never want to share a negative word. You don't want to say anything negative. So even if you have to kick her out, do it in kind words. You always want women to be able to say, Marquett is a gentleman. But do not let that fool you and make you think that you will not have enemies. You will certainly have enemies. If you're living life as a real man, you will always have enemies. Please believe it. Martin Luther King, bullet in the head. Malcolm X, bullet in the head. Muammar Gaddafi got impaled up his ass and then shot, right? Like, you can never live as a real man with real principles and not develop enemies. You understand what I'm saying? Even if you represent peace, You will die by violence if you're living out true principles. So don't be worried about that. A real man is not worried about what other people think. Let the women live in that way. Do we have any other questions here before I hop off? Start winding this down. Let's see. Appreciate the donation, whoever that was. I'm gonna scroll down and see what it was. What do we have here? Kelton, appreciate that donation. Let me get back to kicking a little bit of game. I have to roll down my windows because it's hot out here. A lot of situations that I go through, I try to analyze them and ask myself what kind of game I can share with you guys because I know you're going. My Instagram is at Marquett Devon, MarquettDavon. I know I go through a lot of these situations, and you guys can benefit from the knowledge. The reason I have a lot of these situations is because I'm constantly spitting game. For example, I went into a donut shop recently during COVID-19, just so that you know you can still spit game. And I was raised on flirting with women just because I come from a family where my uncles, I had a lot of uncles, and they were just in that 1970s, 1980s era where they were raised and pimping was a real thing. You understand? So I had two uncles that actually were pimps. My grandfather was a real pimp. So they always had that talk, you know? So anyways, I went into a donut shop, and because of the COVID-19, you can only have two customers in at a time. So there were two customers in there already, and then they came out, and there's the young lady that was standing in front of me, and she looks back at me and she says, "Oh, do you think it's okay if we go in?" I said, "Absolutely." So she walks in there, and I walk in with her. Now, she's a gorgeous girl with a fat ass, too. And the guy behind the donut stand, or like the cashier guy, he says, "Oh, are you two together?" And I said, "Not yet." And then they start chuckling, and then she starts laughing, right? When I said that, number one, only somebody who's player is going to be that quick-witted. That's number one. You got to be quick on your toes. Number two, I said, "Not yet." That's a statement of confidence and a statement of optimism. And then when she laughed, that lets me know that she has a good sense of humor, and that lets me know she's open to the opportunity. Because if she belonged to somebody, she shouldn't be laughing at a joke like that. So then when I said "not yet," they're like, "Oh, okay, so then we're not going to let anybody else in." I was like, "All right, cool." So then we start ordering our donuts. By the time we're done ordering the donuts, I was thinking in my mind, how can I kick a little bit of game at her? It was very difficult to do so because there wasn't time, right? I was going to pay for my stuff after her, so I knew she was going to be leaving first. So there wasn't a real opportunity. So I pulled out my business card, and then after she ordered her or paid for her food and she was about to walk out, I just handed her my business card. She looked at it, she's like, "Oh, what's this?" And then she flipped it over and she's like, "Oh, okay." And then I was like, and she's like, "Yeah, for sure." That's game. That's easy. That's simple, right? But the key is that to be a great fisherman, you must always be fishing. You understand? To have good soldiers, they must always be at war. So I make sure that I'm constantly spitting the game just to be sharp. Now, that's an example for you. One, that you need to take every opportunity to talk to a woman. Number two, you need to be able to assess when a woman is open to what you're giving her. Because not every woman is going to be accepting of what you're offering because they might be in a relationship, they might not like the way you look, they might be sick, whatever the case is. Now, I'll give you another instance of some game. And this is crazy. This happens to me a lot because me, if I see something that I like, that I want, I gotta have it. I'm that kind of guy. And I want to inspire everyone that's in the Saint and Sinner Nation, that SASN, the Sassin, everyone in the Saint and Sinner Nation. If you see something, if you like it, I want you to go at it. That's why I tell people, if you like it, I love it. I was driving down the street one day, and there's this little fast food restaurant called Rally's, and I saw a girl in some jeans, and she was wearing the fuck out of these Levi's, man. The ass was just amazing. So I hit an amazing U-turn, pulled into the parking lot, got out of the car as quickly as possible, and walked up to the window. She was at the walk-up window. So I walked up to the walk-up window. I ordered some food even though I wasn't hungry. And while we're both waiting for the food, I don't even remember how I popped it off. But I said something to her, and she started laughing. And then she says, "Oh, I'm actually just here delivering Postmates." I was like, no shit. I was like, damn, I wouldn't mind if you showed up to my door, but you'd have to bring the food enough for two. You'd have to stay a little while. And then she starts laughing, so we chop it up a little bit, and then her order comes and she has to go. So I tell her, like, you know what? I haven't really had a lot of time to meet you, but I know you're at work right now, low key. So why don't you scream at your boy? So I hand her my business card. Now I know a lot of you guys aren't businessmen. You might not have a business card, but for me, it's very convenient. Generally speaking, I want the ball in my court, which means I want their phone number. I'm going to just say, give me your phone number. I'm going to holla at you. Sometimes, depending on the situation, I might just throw out the business card. So this was another situation. I just hit her with my business card. She went on about her business. I got my food, got in the car, went on about my life. Couple of days later, I get a text message saying, hey, it's Haley, your favorite Postmates driver, right? Next thing you know, man, it was all smooth sailing. And the beautiful thing about a situation like that, when you see a woman and you say, I need that, and you go spit game, it goes swimmingly. She bangs your line, and then, things carry on in a beautiful way. That feels great. But to be able to do that, you have to have the confidence to know that you're going in directly to holler at that girl and there's no turning back. You only get confidence like that from practice. As a boxer, you can imagine fighting someone who's training to fight every single day can be a nerve-wracking experience. But when you go to the gym every day and all you do is fight, once you step in that ring, there's a feeling you get when you're like, okay, I'm just back in my office. I do this. This is what I do. I do this. So you're going to have a high level of comfort and confidence. And I think someone asked, Marquett, are some people just naturally charismatic? I don't know that some people are naturally charismatic. I cannot say. What I can tell you for sure is that people will rub off, right? If you're around people who are charismatic, you're going to get some game. My OG, Kevin Cox, who's deceased now, he was the most player person I've ever been around in my whole life to this day. And I picked up a lot of tips and tricks from him. And the number one thing that I learned from him is don't be scared of a woman saying that you're creepy. Don't be scared of a woman saying, oh, he's too aggressive. Because Kevin always went hard. And what I realized is that if there's 100 women, Kevin's going to go talk to 100 of them. And he might only get 40 of them. But once he gets those 40 women, because women love to talk, he's going to clean up another 20 just from word of mouth. And the other women that he didn't get are going to start to like him because women are social animals. They all like the same guy. You see what I'm saying? And confidence is infectious. And humor will always help you get the job done. And you will notice in a lot of women's online dating profiles, they say, I like a guy who can make me laugh. Now, the truth is, you're not here to entertain anyone, right? You're not here to be a jester or a clown, but you should know that laughter disarms people. So especially when you're dealing with women, it's a great tool to get in the game initially. So I highly recommend you leverage laughter. I highly recommend that you leverage confidence because those are charismatic things. Are some people naturally more charismatic than others? Probably. I tend to think, though, you are the collection of people that you're raised around. So I'm just a collection of all the different personalities I was raised around, many of whom are charismatic. But I think if I was raised around different people, I wouldn't be as charismatic. So that is to say, look at your influences. You're learning from those people. You're absorbing their characteristics, right? So I knew this one guy named Ronnie. Every time he's talking, you can always see his teeth. He's like smiling while he's talking to you. Very charismatic. Kevin Cox, he's always joking and being playful. Very charismatic. He's always going to say the crazy thing that everyone was thinking, but no one was willing to say. So those are real things, but you got to figure out what is cool about you because we all have different flavors. And you have to really leverage that which you actually are because that's going to be the most delicious flavor to a woman. Let's see if we have some more thoughts, questions, comments. Do you worry about females seeing you on YouTube and deciphering your game? Yolo, that's a great question. I can assure you there is, right as we speak, a female that I am dealing with who is watching this and is either hating on it or taking notes or trying to analyze. But the thing that makes me not worried is I'm not, we might call it game. And when I say game, I mean strategy. But when I'm dealing with women, it's not game, it's just real. I present to them who I really am. So there's no way to pick apart my game because I'm engaging with them based on who I am. And I'm never lying about who I am. They can check my background. Everything I tell them is a fee issue. So often when women have a problem with a man, it's because they've been lying. It's because they're trying to aggrandize themselves to look like there's something that they're not. You will have women that I meet who look at the channel and say, Marquett, I can't fuck with you because of fill in the blank. They have some moral superiority that they try to portray. But the truth is, I know that these women are imbeciles because if they really dig into my real background, if we're talking morality, I donate more money than anybody they know to charitable causes. If we're talking about percentage of income, I spent my whole career in impact, social impact, whether it was as a teacher in Baltimore City, it was a teacher in public schools that were shit in Philadelphia, or it was building a nonprofit in Baltimore for boys, or running a nonprofit at Johns Hopkins Medical. If they want to talk about doing good, I have a whole history of it from the past and today. So women who are real, they're going to love a man like me because everything I say is real facts, and the way I live, you can see the proof. I've received awards for altruism. I've received awards for doing good for people. So I think that real recognizes real. The fake women are going to fall off. If you spit game at 100 women, you're not going to get all 100. If you get 50 of their phone numbers, you're not going to have sex with 50 of them, right? Things are going to fall off. But what's left at the end are the women who are genuine. And that's what I'm really looking for. A woman who's on my YouTube channel shouldn't be here because I tell all of them not to watch me on YouTube. So if they're watching me on YouTube, I know they're disobedient, number one. I know that they're interested in the affairs of men because I tell my women, my YouTube channel is for men. Why? Because I truly believe that when men step up to the plate and we do our jobs as fathers, as leaders of families, as men in society, the world will be better. So I spit game to enrich men. So if a woman is here watching my game, either she's a real intelligent woman who just likes to hear a wise man preach, she likes to hear someone speak the words of God, fantastic. But a woman who's been disobedient and is on this channel, she's probably trying to get on this channel and write down some shit so she can analyze what I'm telling her. But it'll never work because what I'm telling her is real shit, right? So I don't like that kind of woman, and I've encountered them. But the long story short is I'm not worried because I'm wealthy. I'm rich in women, so they can always leave. There's always a new one coming, right? Any advice on losing your virginity? I'm scared because I feel like I got to perform, and she's probably smashed hella experienced guys. That's an important question, and I can give you a very meaningful answer. One, I truly want to tell you not to worry about how you perform with women in the bedroom. I can tell you that when I was out of college, I was in this program called Teach for America. I ended up being involved with a gorgeous young lady named Megan. She was a tall blonde, maybe about 6'1", just looks like a model, man. And she would call me up and say, hey, come over, I want to fool around. And I kid you not, I wouldn't go because I didn't feel like I could max her out the way I needed to, right? And the sad thing about it is women are not, they're not like entirely stimulated from the clitoris. Women are stimulated from the mind, from the heart, from the romance, from the foreplay. So if a woman loves you, if she really is feeling you as a person, if you fail in your physical performance, she's going to work with you, and she's not going to have that as a major priority in the first place. Because at the end of the day, if women were all about sex, they wouldn't be withholding the sex. They're all about the heart. That's why they withhold the sex, to make sure that the guys that they do have sex with are guys that love them, because they want to retain the man. So they're not really worried about if you can fuck well. That's a paranoia of males. If your dick is big enough, that's a paranoia of the male. if you know how to have sex with her. That's the paranoia of the male. So don't worry about that. The truth is, you need to go forward in this world. Do not be cautious, be bold. Do we have any other questions before we wind this thing down, folks? Here to give out a little bit of game because I haven't been live in a while. Just scrolling back through your questions right now. Should I express my emotions with my girl, or should I just be a rock and vent to the homies? Well, my good brother, ideally you don't have too many fucking emotions. I know that's not the way of the world today. They tell everybody to lean into their emotions, but I think that if you're taking out enough time alone, whether you're going on a long jog, you go on an hour and a half run, that's a lot of thinking time. The Muslims pray 5 times a day. That's a lot of reflection time. If you find that you're constantly venting to other people, that means you haven't taken enough time alone to really self-examine and introspect. As a man, a woman does not want you to be the weaker party. If you're venting to a woman a lot, she is going to lose respect for you rapidly. If you want to vent to your male friends, that's fine, but remember, men also have very low tolerance for that as well. The way that you're going to feel better is to exercise and make your body strong. It's a mind-body connection. The stronger you feel, the more endorphins, the more serotonin and dopamine are released in the brain. You'll feel happier. And when you're exercising, you'll be solving your problems in your mind in the background. The truth is, when you go out in rigorous exercise, it gives you time to think and release. You understand? If you're doing a lot of talking, that means you're not doing a lot of acting, not a lot of physical things. Men are physical animals. That's why we're made strong. We're made as protectors. We're made as aggressors. So I want to encourage you not to vent to a woman. I think it's the very worst thing you can do. But if it's appropriate, yeah, sure, do that. But I can tell you, rarely will women give you good advice. Women will generally give you bad advice because they first prioritize their self-interest and they first prioritize their emotions. That's why they're going to give you bad advice. So if you need any elaboration on that, I'm happy to hop on a consultation. But generally speaking, if you're venting to a woman, that's like asking them for advice. Because the moment you spill your guts, they're going to start telling you how to solve the situation. They're going to tell you what they would do. And at the moment in which you put them in that leadership position, you're making yourself a follower of the female. And I can assure you, she'll probably be talking behind your back to some other guy about how weak you are. So what you don't want is for Marquett Devon Burton to catch your bitch slipping, and then Marquette Devon Burton is Dr. Philin the girl and asking about her ex, and she's going to say, oh yeah, I used to date this guy named Tony, and Tony used to always whine about this. He used to cry literally with tears, and then I'm thinking you're a fucking sucker, because you would be a sucker if you're spilling your guts to a female. You should really avoid that. I truly, truly recommend that. And I don't say that to be a tough guy because we all have emotions, but I say that in the sense that what's the use in spilling your guts to someone who can't help you, right? Like, if you have money problems, why would you talk to someone who can't help you get money? That doesn't make sense, right? If you need to build a house, you need to talk to an architect. You don't need to talk to a woman about problems they can't help you solve. They're not the leader. Talk to a wise man. Talk to your father. Talk to your uncle. Talk to your mentor. Talk to the big homie. Talk to Marquette. But don't talk to a female about this stuff because she's looking to you for leadership. So that's why as a man, it is your responsibility to seek knowledge. Me, the reason I can get on this Instagram live or this YouTube live and I can sit here and just give game after game after game is because I've sought knowledge consistently. I'm worthy of giving out game. I can tell you books from memory. You understand? So I have experience and I also have academic knowledge, and those are things that allow me to give you game because I've done it. As a man, that's your goal. That's why women like older men. They like older men because they know that they have the experience. They know that they're battle tested. Women, when things go bad, they want to look at you as a rock, someone they can lean on. They don't want, when things go bad, for you to be just as scared as they are. When shit goes bad, they expect you to be able to say, look, baby, I've been through this. I know how this shit go. Put on your seatbelt. I can get us up out of here. That's what they're looking for. You need to be James Bond in this motherfucker. All right. That's right. Salam, you're correct. Don't ever argue or debate with a woman. It's not worth it. It's a total waste of your time. Are there any other questions? Should you ever disclose your own sexual history? That's a good question. I tell you this, women who are really worthwhile are not interested in your sexual history. Women who are mature are not interested in your sexual history. And if you're a good listener, you will listen so well that she'll do so much talking, she'll forget to ask you half the things that you ask her, right? So don't be forthcoming if it's not necessary. A woman who really wants you, they don't want to be your first love, they want to be your last love, which means they don't care about everything you did previously. The difference between the man and the woman, a man wants to be a woman's only love, right? We want to be their first love and their only love. Conversely, a woman, she wants to be your last love, meaning she just doesn't want you to have any other women after her. So I say that to say, if you're a real man, she can assume that because you're so valuable, you may have had a significant sexual history. Look at the lower animals. The alpha male always gets his choice of the female. So mostly they don't want to know about your sexual history because it will just mess up their psychology, make them feel inferior, make them feel jealous. So a mature woman is not going to ask about that. But generally speaking, I would suggest that you are brief on your sexual history. You are brief and limited in the scope of what you share. And in fact, if the girl has limited sexual history, you might tell her, hey, love, we're in a learning process together. You can teach me how to please you. I'm interested to learn. But what I can assure you of is, generally speaking, if you have not done well to make the woman comfortable, she's not going to be honest about her sexual history. So whatever she says she's done more than that. I can assure you. In my book, you're going to read about the following stories. There are 4 women who told me they were virgins, and none of them were virgins. When I was a kid, I thought they were because I didn't know any better. I'll give you an example. There was this one girl I was dating. She was a very wealthy young lady. She went to an all-girls private school. Comes from a family with a lot of money, so they would send her on these trips, right? So she went on one trip to Mexico to Cuernavaca, Mexico. She went on another trip to Cuba. And during that time, she met a guy and had some experiences with him, and she claimed she didn't have intercourse, which was a lie for sure. How do I know that was a lie? Because by the time she gave me her virginity, there was no blood and there was no hymen being destroyed, right? I had 3 other women who told me they were virgins, but there was no blood on 3 out of the 4, and there was no hymen blocking my entrance. On the 4th one, there was blood, but there was only blood because she decided to have intercourse on her menstruation so that she could claim that blood was from the breaking of the hymen. But I knew it was from menstruation because she continued bleeding for days after that, which is obviously menstruation, right? Now, this is when I figured out these women were not virgins. When I was in university at Berkeley, there was a gorgeous girl, very large rack, very stylish young lady. One of her parents was a professor at Berkeley, and she was smitten with me. She was just so in love with me. And I think it was primarily because I started my own fraternity, president of the fraternity. I got 40, 50 guys with me every time I pull up somewhere. We used to throw the most cracking parties. So she was definitely smitten with me. And one night she took me back to her dorm and she handed me a condom and she says, I would like you to, and I was like, all right, for sure. Dude, when I was trying to get in, I was just I was like, what is going on? Open your legs. And I'm trying, and then all of a sudden it went in, right? And I never had that experience, and I didn't know what happened until everything was over, and I get up, and it was like a murder scene. There's blood everywhere, and it was bright red blood. You understand? It was not that old-ass period blood. It was bright, richly red blood from the breaking of a hymen, a fresh break. that girl was a true virgin. And here's the kicker. She never said she was a virgin. She was actually embarrassed about being a virgin. That was a real virgin. All the other girls were not virgins. And remember, when I was in high school, I was the fucking cool guy. I was voted best dressed, best smile, Mr. Irresistible, all that shit. So if you have girls that are coming to me and they're saying they're virgins and they're not virgins, trust me, when they tell you that they were virgins, they're definitely not virgins. When they tell you they've only slept with 5 guys, you better multiply that shit by 3 and add 7. Because the fact is, these women have either taken their own virginity because of their masturbation, because a lot of them are just really perverse in the amount that they masturbate, or they've had a sexual experience with some other guy, an older guy. And by the time they come to you, they're ashamed because women, another piece of female nature is they are very much so shame creatures. They have strong sense of guilt. So they're definitely going to lie to you about their sexual history. So I highly advise you to not believe it. You don't have to tell them that you know they're lying. You just have to know it yourself. I know girls whom I've literally accidentally found their vibrator in their house when I was looking for something, and they had the nerve to tell me they don't use a vibrator. And I'm thinking, bitch, I've literally seen your vibrator. The shit is the size of my arm, and you telling me you don't use a vibrator. So you can bet your bottom dollar that they're going to be lying to you. And as a wise man, you just need to say, oh, okay, I understand who you are. I understand how to deal with you. I'm not going to call you out because it's not necessary, but I got your number. I got your card. Let's see what else. Zaid, this shirt, I cannot. I made a decision. I'm not promoting anybody's brand unless it's my own brand or it's a brand of someone I know or fuck with. What's your thought on brothers going down on women regardless of wifey or side chick? That's a good question, Salem. And I'm going to answer that question because I really want to give you guys practical advice for living in the real world. And sometimes we have to go deep into questions about sex and sexuality. And I do that because sometimes I know your older brother, your father, or your preacher has not gone into these kind of details. And it's important for you living a happy, healthy life. I can tell you there are women that, man, you strip them naked and they are works of art. You strip them naked and they're absolutely beautiful, and you want to eat a piece of that pie, man. But if the girl is not your main girl, I highly recommend against engaging in oral sex on the female, because imagine if you were unfortunate and you caught an STI, a sexually transmitted infection, it would go around your mouth. It would go on your face, on your moneymaker. Your face is too much to sacrifice for a moment of passion. Unless you're 100% sure that the woman is without any disease, I highly recommend you do not engage in giving the female oral sex unless she's your main girl and you're highly confident that she is clean. Secondly, people will ask, okay, will you recommend against doing that because of the dynamic it'll create in the relationship with her feeling empowered or her feeling like she's like in a stronger position than you? Well, if that's something you want to do, feel free to do it in a safe situation. But generally speaking, if a woman is willing to receive it but not give it, you're in a weak position. And that's not a position you want to be in. Realistically, you must know that anatomically speaking, penises are very easy to clean. They're external, right? It's like cleaning your arm. Conversely, the vagina is extremely difficult to clean. There are many products on the market that are designed specifically to clean the vagina because it's so difficult to truly clean. Further, there's a lot of research. There's even a book, I think it's called Sperm Wars, that semen can live in the vagina for a significant amount of time. If your woman is unfaithful, that means that you might be literally giving her oral sex and she could have recently had intercourse with another man and his semen could be alive in her vagina at that time. Which is to say that generally speaking, it is not a recommended thing because the vagina is not the cleanest thing in the world, right? I mean, let's be real here. There's blood that comes out of the vagina and she has to sit in the blood in public until she can go and clean it, right? So when you really think of it in those terms, you know that it's not something you want to engage in unless you have a true relationship with this woman. How does one deal with the fact that sex outside of marriage is a sin? I appreciate you asking that question. I believe you are one of my patrons, so I appreciate your support on www.patreon.com/the saint and the sinner, and I will answer that question because that's a very important question for men and women. I think that number one, when you talk about sin, we're obviously speaking religiously. So we have a lot of folks on this call that are religious and a lot that are not religious. So the first thing I want to say, if you're following a religion, whether it's Islam or Christianity or Judaism, Catholicism, what have you, you're always going to run into places where you will be failing or falling short, right? It is extremely difficult to keep all of the commandments on a regular basis. Human beings are expected to be sinful at a level. Generally speaking, I would say this to you. All sins are not created equally. There is no doubt that certain sins are viewed as more egregious than other sins. For example, in the Quran, it reads as follows. To kill one innocent person is like killing all of mankind. That's clearly a very strong sin. In the Quran, it also says to engage in sexual acts with the same gender is an abomination. And many scholars say that capital punishment is the recommendation. Conversely, to engage in sex outside of marriage does not have capital punishment. Whereas to kill an innocent person, that's capital punishment. To engage in homosexuality, that's capital punishment. To engage in sex outside of marriage does not involve capital punishment, but it does involve physical punishment, corporal punishment of many lashes. So the truth is, you just have to ask yourself what's realistic. I do not recommend that you rush into marriage. If you're a religious person, you obviously want to get married, but do not rush into marriage, right? Because the worst thing you can do is to attach yourself to a woman long term and she is not a person who's mentally sane or financially stable. That's going to cause you a problem. So you do need a sexual outlet. I highly recommend you find a woman that you feel as though you can marry. You have good niyyah, meaning you have positive and pure intention to marry the woman. You allow her to satisfy you sexually, because the worst thing to do is to be sexually repressed. I think that causes psychological issues. It's my personal opinion. To your question about this, the reason I say I'm the saint and the sinner and my overall philosophy is that when we step outside of religion, we need to know that the human being requires sex. For me to tell you not to have sex and you're a healthy man is not a realistic thing. So the Saint Sinner Nation is about teaching you how to engage in these things in the safest possible way. So you never hear me on here telling you to have sex with many women. You don't even hear me talking about having sex with many women. I probably turned down more vagina in the course of a year than everyone on this phone call is offered in the course of a year. I'm telling you, man, I turn it down like I turn down my collar, because most of it is filthy and most of it comes with attachments to women that I don't want to deal with. When you stick yourself into some vagina, you are sticking yourself into a trap half the time. So that's why I tell you to avoid it. What other questions can I answer from you guys? Yeah, and do get the likes up, especially when we end this. Go back and like the video if you haven't. What other questions may I answer? I have heard to get women invested and interested in you, you have to get them emotionally invested. Yes, of course. That's a simple answer. The answer is yes. Women are emotional animals. In fact, men are emotional animals. So anytime that you can manipulate emotions, you will be in control. People don't make decisions based on logic. Do we have any other questions before I start wrapping this up, folks? And another thing I want to speak to about emotions, if you know that human beings are emotional animals, when you're engaging with a woman and you want to get an outcome out of her, never approach her and explain the logic or explain the truth. Always think about how you can affect her emotions and drive her emotions to get your outcome. So, for example, I had a situation back when I was in graduate school in Baltimore. I had a gorgeous black woman that I was with. It was my main girl. And I didn't want to be in a relationship with her anymore. I didn't have the heart to tell her, hey, I don't want to be with you. So instead I told her, hey, love, I just want to let you know I want to see other women, so we should end this relationship because I don't feel like I can be monogamous with just you. So there's nothing wrong with you. It's all about my need to be with other women, and I don't want to do you dirty. So I told her that. Now, she responded to me and said, Marquette, I totally understand that, but I cannot live without you. I am willing to stay with you and allow you to be with other women as long as you don't bring it in front of my face. What I learned from that situation is that when I first met the girl, if I told her I want to have other women on the side, she would have said no immediately. However, once we had been in a relationship for some amount of time and she built up emotions for me, when I told her I wanted other women, she said no problem. Because at that point, she was making a decision based on emotions. And the strongest emotion that was ruling her was the emotion of love and emotional attachment to me. So that lets you know that emotions will always affect how human beings, especially women, make decisions. And you have to be able to leverage their emotions to get the outcome that you need. So timing is key. Being able to build up the connection is key. And you can learn a lot about how to do that by reviewing my videos in detail. Okay, were there any other questions we have here? I like hearing you speak. You haven't contradicted yourself in video upon video. Thank you. I appreciate you pointing that out. And HMM, you're totally right. I have not contradicted myself because when I'm talking to you guys, I'm speaking from not only a deep experience base, but I speak in terms of ideology and systems. I think in systems, which means that if I tell you to do one thing, it's gonna work with all the other things that I tell you to do. They all work together. There's another YouTuber out there, I kid you not. Someone sent me his videos and I watched them, and there were two different videos contradicted themselves. One video said, if a girl messages you, don't respond immediately, respond the next day, tell her that you were busy. Then in another video, he says you need to be aggressive. And if you want to talk to the girl, go ahead and message her. And I'm just like, these two things are in direct contradiction. My hope is that when you're getting this information from me, it's clear enough that you can apply it to whatever your pursuit is. The truth is, you guys who are watching this, many of you don't want multiple women. Many of you want one woman. Many of you, you don't have a pimp bone in your body. You never want to be a pimp, and you never want to do anything that's pimpish. I'm telling you things that can apply to every type of relationship that you have. If you want to be a square, you want to be religious, find one woman who's worthy of marrying and stay with her for the rest of your life. What I'm advising you on will still be helpful. Do I believe in marriage? I do believe in the idea of being with a woman forever. I do not believe in the idea of getting a legal marriage and having the government regulate your affairs as a man, because then they're in control of your destiny. They're putting their laws on you so that they can steal your money. I don't believe that. And the important thing is, I really want to address this question. A guy put, what do you think about poly? I'm assuming he means polyamory and not polygyny or polygamy. Here's an important thing. Do not ever identify yourself as 50-50 with a woman. What I mean by that is you'd be a fool to tell a woman, we're going to be 50-50 so that you get what I get. Anytime you make that deal, you are doing yourself a disservice. For example, there's a young lady that I described earlier in this video, and she basically told me she doesn't believe in monogamy. She told me she is all about being with multiple guys. And then she asked me, what do I want for my future? I told her, I want polygyny. What that word means is to marry multiple women. I would like to marry 2 women, maybe 3, maybe 4, but definitely at least 2. And that's because I know I can contribute at that high level, right? I know that I'm a very even man. I'm a fair man. I can deal with these women equitably. In her mind, she would then say, okay, well, if you get 2 women, do the women get 2 men? The answer is no. Why is that the answer? Because the kind of women I want, they don't want 2 men. Here's why. The male nature is to propagate. The male nature is to spread his seed. I always tell women, how many men can you be pregnant by at one time? You can only be pregnant by one man at a time. At this very moment, if you were pregnant, only one man can sire that child. As a man, I can impregnate an infinite number of women today. I can get 30 women pregnant today. The male nature is to really live in this wealthy way, right? Thank you, HMM, for that donation. So if you look at it scientifically, the hypothalamus in the male brain, it's the area of the brain that regulates primitive desire, the desire for the desire for sleep, the desire for sex, the desire for food, primitive desires. Our hypothalamus is 3 times bigger than the woman's hypothalamus, which means that our drive for sex and our drive to be aggressive is much higher. Because of that, I need to live in a natural way, a way that's natural for me. So my philosophy is always promoting that you live in a way that is natural for you. Conversely, women, they do not want multiple men unless they have experienced trauma. Women who have suffered from trauma, they want multiple men because they need astronomical levels of validation. They need astronomical levels of attention. They need such a high amount of these things that they have to seek it from multiple men. Those are women who are not well mentally. Now, when I have 2 wives, they only want one man. Why? Because the female nature is monogamous. The male nature is generally polygynous. But, oh man, my battery's going dead, folks. I got to get out of here. So look, check this out. If you've donated, go ahead and share your questions now because your boy's battery is dying. So I'm about to start wrapping this up. This has been a long session. So do share your last minute questions if you have them right now. Eric V says, is a high school relationship worth it? Well, you got to get started somewhere, baby. So there's nothing wrong with engaging a female in high school, but don't take it too seriously. Always remember, there's always a new girl. Even if you feel like you're deeply in love, keep your emotions in control and know that there'll be times you fall out of love, you'll fall back in love with a new woman. There's always a new woman. Do not get too tied up in high school, but you'd be lucky to meet your high school sweetheart because a woman that you get when she's young, you get to develop her, you get to coach her as she's growing, and you will really have a woman that's more pure. So the younger you can get a woman, the better. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said it's always better to marry young and early. And I think that's actually true. Someone put, are you going to save this video? Generally, these videos, if they disappear, they go to www.patreon.com/the-saint-and-the-sinner spelled out. So, and that's because those are the folks who are paying $6 a month or more, and they are supporting my work. So I try to make sure I give them some exclusive content. So that's where this stuff generally goes. What other questions do we have before I get out? All right, folks, if there are no more questions, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. How do you handle a woman who's trying to outdo you? The woman literally does everything I do. I think there's nothing wrong with some friendly competition. I've had a lot of women who were extraordinary in many ways. I used to have one young lady who used to be a track star. So when I would go on my run, she would run with me. Bitch be outrunning niggas, I swear to God. And it was fun. It used to push me harder. But in my mind, there's no way I'm going to let a female outdo me. So it used to just push me harder. But at the end of the day, she knew I was the big homie. She knew I'm daddy. And when I used to wear her ass out, I used to make her tell me that I own her. So she knows I'm the big dog. I'm the leader. She's the follower. So you have chicks who engage you in friendly competition, not a problem. It enhances both parties. But if you have a woman who's trying to dominate you, a woman who's trying to outpace you, that's a woman that you want to hump her and dump her. You don't really want to pay her any mind because she is never going to give you the true wealth and abundance that a good woman can offer you. A good woman doesn't want to outdo you. A good woman wants to aggrandize you. She wants to take everything that she is and invest that into who you are so that you can be great because she's invested in your last name. She wants the name Marquett Devon Burton to be a great name because she's going to be Mrs. Marquett Devon Burton. She's doing everything to make you bigger because she knows the bigger you are, the bigger she is. So that's where you really have to invest your fortune into that kind of woman. That's a great question. Why is your comment deleted? I have no idea, brother. I don't censor comments. If your comment is deleted, that may be because of YouTube and their tremendous amount of censorship. Were there any other questions from folks who have donated before I hop off? Where are the questions to ask a woman on the Patreon website? Roberto, Mr. Longoria, I just actually reposted the questions on Patreon. So if you're on patreon.com/the Saint and the Sinner, it's exclusive content for those who are subscribers, but you'll see it. It literally says conversation questions/topics. It's a PDF, and you can download that document, and it has all the questions that you can ask a woman to build that deep relationship. Marquett, you have the best game on YouTube. Why is your channel not bigger? You're 100% right. And I say it humbly, I truly have the best game on the internet. And I know because I check out and see what else is on there. And all the other people who purport to be sharing game, they're nerds. They're nerds. I mean, and I don't say that to deride them, but you're getting game from a guy who, I saw this one white dude, he had like so much makeup on, his face was orange and his neck was YouTube video. That's some weirdo shit. But people are listening to him. There's another guy on there, All Beta Male Strategies, and this guy will tell you himself that he used to be overweight. No disrespect to anybody who struggled with being overweight, but you want to get the game from a nigga who's been cool his whole life. How much more game do I have when I've been getting bitches since I was 8 years old? That's a tremendous amount of game. Your game from these weirdos, they don't have game unless they're getting it from somebody like me. So just come to the source. But I tell you what, baby, this movement will grow because you share it. This movement will grow because you repost my content. This movement will grow because I saw a lot of guys who really support this movement on their Instagram. It says the Saint and the Sinner. And that's what we're about, baby. It's a true recognition of who human beings really are. We are all saints. We have goodness within us. We try to do good things. We try to be our best. We also have the sinner within us, which is meaning that we're not performing to the level we want to be. We're failing in some way. It's just acknowledging the truth of who we are. And I'm not only spitting game about how to get a woman, because that's basic. I'm telling you how to be a great man. If you win at being a great man, you will have an abundance of women. I'm teaching you how to be a man who's happy with yourself. When you're happy with yourself, you will attract women. You understand what I'm saying? Women will want to be around you. They'll want to learn from you. They'll want to soak up your energy. They'll see that you're happy and they'll want to figure out how you can make them happy. You understand what I'm saying? So this move is going to grow because of you. And the truth is, when you look historically, if you look at Jesus, a multitude did not follow Jesus. He had 12 disciples. You look at the Prophet Muhammad, his earlier following was not huge. In fact, his own family members did not follow him. He had people in his family who did not believe he was a prophet. So I say that to say history is a great teacher. Some things start out small, but I can tell you, if we do our work, we'll be able to grow this thing, because I think that when people learn these philosophies, we'll live in a better world. We'll live in a better world where people are honest, where men are straightforward, where men are great leaders. And that's why I really do this. I'm not doing this to get you laid. You'll probably get laid listening to this pimping, but I really do this so that you can be a great man, a great leader. That's why I get on this goddamn YouTube and talk shit to you, because I want you to be great. And so I'm going to wrap this up the way I always wrap this up, and go ahead and say this after me. I am going to be who I truly am, because I am truly remarkable. And I will strive every moment to ensure that I am being the greatest of who I am. Ladies and gentlemen, friends and enemies, it has been truly a pleasure to be here with you, and I appreciate your support. Continue showing love to those who show love to you. If you didn't get a chance to donate and you do want to, we just gave out damn near 2 hours of game. You can see my Cash App, my Venmo, and my PayPal is in the description. So do support your boy. I hope you folks have a great day. Be remarkable.